The average person today is able to live barely. They can't really save for the future. They can't earn an income that will allow them a sense of security. Chances are they won't get a pension when they retire, and their government money won't be sufficient. They'll need to work as long as their situation allows them to. Debt continues to pile up, and there is no solution for the majority. Unfortunately, they are told to get a good job, invest in a 401k, and hold on for the long term. This hasn't actually worked for anyone since pensions are underfunded, and many people are still recovering from the financial crisis. Debt is a powerful tool. Will you be a victim of it? You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Today we're going to cover such an important topic, and that is debt. But if you look at the national debt and you see it's $20+ trillion, how does that actually affect people, real people? Well, of course, we're going to get into the details of this right now. I have a lot of topics surrounding this debt issue that is taking place, but ultimately I want you to think about how this affects people on the ground. Let's get into it right away. Median U.S. household income showed no growth in 2018. This is detrimental to the average person because as things become more expensive, you hope that your income will go up as a result, and of course you can break even essentially. But what we see is that real income, when you actually factor in inflation, is going nowhere. If anywhere, it's actually heading downward. And then you look at expenses that the average person has to pay, not the core PCE rate that the government talks about, not even the CPI that the BLS will provide you. I'm talking about the real, actual, factual data. What you're paying for food, what you're paying for your energy bills, what about your tuition, what about all the things that actually are getting more expensive every year? Yeah, let's just remove those from the equation, and then we'll tell people that inflation is at less than 2%. My goodness, people actually swallow that garbage. Now take a look at the chart on the bottom here. They're adjusting for inflation on the median annual household income. But if you actually look at this statistically and where this figure has gone in terms of real inflation, it is completely and entirely false. This data that they're showing you here. I've given you the reports before, and it just shows you how far they're willing to go. There's no question about that. Take a look at this. I haven't been able to get ahead. This particular person here talking about their story. They give you a few examples in this Wall Street Journal article. I've never been able to hit that next threshold of $50,000 a year. Last year, her income was several $1,000s below that. When they show you the data that comes surrounding the employment situation, we know how they've been able to manipulate it. In fact, if you want to know specifically, all you need to do is search for the Money GPS unemployment fake, and you will find the videos that I've done about this. You're looking at data that can be manipulated very easily. There's so many levels in which they do this. Number one, what about the people that have 2 and 3 jobs? That skews the statistics. If somebody is employed 1 hour per month, they are considered to be employed. If they're no longer looking for work, according to the statistics, well then they're just completely wiped off the unemployment figures. That doesn't make any sense, but that's the way it is. You look into it on every single level and you find out that the situation is always worse. But you can even look at the anecdotal evidence. What about the tent cities that are appearing all over the United States? To me, that's a telltale sign, but you're not going to see it coming up in the numbers because you say, well, the poverty rate is getting better. Therefore, that isn't an excuse. That isn't the reason. But as far as I'm concerned, you need to look at this on all levels. It's so important. They're never going to give you that. You're only going to be able to get the information that they want to, and you're not going to go to the BLS to get that data, or I should say the average person. They're never going to go to the BLS website. They probably don't even know about the BLS. What they're going to do is they're going to open up their newspaper and maybe read the titles, and that's going to tell them unemployment rate 3.7%, and then they might get that next little subtitle there that says best economy ever. Fantastic, congratulations. The situation is not just for the United States. Take a look at this article. It's from earlier in the year. This is out of Bloomberg and it's talking about Canada. The number of Canadians who are $200 or less away from financial insolvency every month has climbed to 48% in a sign of deteriorating financial stability for many people in the country. Now you have to think about this. Of course, number one, it's a survey that doesn't necessarily include all people, but it gives you a good idea. And even if it's not 48%, if we bring that down to 40% or even 30%, do whatever you want, whatever makes you happy, whatever makes you feel good. All I need to say is that this is the case for so many people. How many people do you know that push themselves right to the edge? Look, all the bills are getting paid. They work a 9-to-5 job, they're paying their bills. Yeah, they might have some credit card debt. They've got $5,000 there carrying a balance over. They have a nice big mortgage. Maybe they're paying the rent. Whatever the situation is, they're able to sustain their living simply by being employed and maybe carrying on some debt. This is what most people do. However, if something changes, if the debt load increases dramatically or they lose their job, either one of these situations are going to completely disrupt their current state of living. That's what I worry about. We can look at the data that shows us how many people are bankrupt, how many people are insolvent, how many people are unable to pay their bills right now, but the number can grow extremely fast, as we saw in the financial crisis. It really doesn't take much at all to take it from a very low level of maybe 3%, 5%, and to have that number go and exceed 10%. It could be literally a matter of months. This is one of the major factors for why interest rates have remained low and need to remain low without it causing a catastrophic and terrible situation. It is a fact. All central banks need to keep interest rates low, and the majority who are unaware say, look, this is a good thing. Why do you keep saying that interest rates being low is bad when clearly that allows people to borrow more, that allows them to pay off their debt over a long period of time and not need to worry about all of this interest? But the majority of these people don't understand anything about open market operations. The central bank has to print money to keep interest rates at these levels. Are you aware of that? I've mentioned that hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times on this channel, and I still see the comments every single time. I'm waiting for that comment to appear on this video. Real US debt levels could be 2,000% of economy, a Wall Street report suggests. I don't know that it's 2,000%. I don't really like to look into this on that level. To me, all that matters is what we are seeing today is excessive levels of debt everywhere. The national debt, personal, corporate, and everything in between. They get into more details here in the article, but I just simply wanted to mention it because I think it's so important to realize it literally is on all levels maxed out to a record level. Debt as a percentage of the GDP, this just shows you here the social programs, promises from current social insurance programs, the financial debt, the households, and so on. It's excessive. It's beyond what will ever be paid back, and I'm not sure how they're going to handle it. I think it is a big concern that is simply being swept under the rug because you see, nobody wants to deal with the problems of tomorrow today. They think we've got so much to handle right now. I will worry about that later. The national debt is now more than 10 times annual tax receipts. This, of course, will never be paid back except with confetti money. That's usually what a country does when they have these mass levels of debt. They print their currency into infinity and they can surely pay anybody back. We know what Alan Greenspan said, and it's only a matter of time. The federal deficit surpassed $1 trillion in the first 11 months of fiscal 2019, according to the CBO. This just shows you how much money they are willing to spend, and they'll never, ever give up on it. This is actually part of two charts I wanted to show you. Total revolving credit owned and securitized. This is important because we're looking at the data related to credit cards, okay? This is at a level it has specifically never been before. When you see what happened in the previous crisis, that people started to deleverage dramatically, not because they wanted to, but because a lot of them were going bankrupt, okay? So there was this huge deleverage that occurred. Actually, if you look at it it on a grand scale, it's just a blip. But when you see it specifically, for example, with credit cards, you can actually break it down and it's displayed right here in front of you. The reason I mention this is that we have the highest credit card debt that the world has ever seen. The United States is unbelievable in this category here, but the average credit card interest rate is 17.61%. That is actually a level that is a 6-month low. So even though we have watched these rates coming down to a 6-month low, they are still quite high for people to carry this much debt, 17.61%. And the average person, depending on where you look, I've seen anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 being carried over to the next month. We are looking at people that will never be able to dig themselves out of this hole. This is the revolving credit change month over month, excessive growth in the amount of credit card debt that has been amassed. I'm surprised that people are unwilling to eliminate some of it right now, especially because they've been hearing about recession and you've been watching some of these financial companies start to lay people off. We've been watching the retail apocalypse that's been going on. You would think some people would wise up, but they never really learn. This is the goldfish mentality of most of humanity. Why are America's 3 biggest metros shrinking? After a post-recession boomlet, the New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago areas are all seeing their population decline. As far as I'm concerned, we are seeing these cities being extremely expensive, gotten to a point where people simply cannot afford them. Take Manhattan as an example, where the average rent was above $4,000. I mean, if you're not making that much per month, how in the world are you affording the rent? That's just rent. Then we have to talk about your other expenses, your electricity and other utilities. What about your food? What about your insurance, your car, your gas, and so on? All of this adds up to a level that people simply can't afford. Then if you want to move outside of the city, but you need to work because all the jobs are usually located inside the major cities, you're commuting for 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day. This is unsustainable. Santander Consumer USA Holdings, one of the biggest US subprime auto finance companies, verified income on less than 3% of borrowers whose loans it bundled into more than $1 billion of bonds it sold this year. Think about what's happening right now. I know this isn't as big as the subprime crisis from the real estate situation that happened a decade ago, but this is so important. That's down from as high as 17% of loans verified for some asset-backed securities in 2017. They compare this to other companies which have significantly higher percentages. They show you other examples that are located in here, but the last paragraph sums it up. This steady decline in Santander's income verification levels in recent pools of loans means that there is a higher chance of borrowers having weaker credit profiles than they have stated. Understand what we are looking at right now. This is potentially a catalyst for something much worse. Not necessarily saying that this is going to create the next financial crisis because of one company having problems in one area, but it can certainly start something. All you need is a spark to light the fire. Percentage of auto loans that are 90 plus days delinquent, and this has been growing over the last few years. Look at where it is today, practically back to the level it was during the financial crisis. As I said before, percentage wise isn't that high when you look at it. In historic terms, it's relatively high, but because of the securitization of all of these debt-based products, it can create a crisis out of thin air. That's all for this video. If you found it informative, hit that thumbs up button. You gotta click one button and you make Janet Yellen smile, so thank you very much for that. If you want to build a business, if you want to know how to make money, thousands upon thousands of dollars passively, this is so common for Amazon sellers. You have to know what you're doing. You have to follow the steps. There are guidelines. There is a formula. Don't do it the way that you see online. In the Amazon GPS, I tell you the sustainable way to make money through Amazon, not the gimmicky, not the get rich quick. I'm just about to add more videos in, perhaps tomorrow. A lot of new information coming out here. Check it out at the AmazonGPS.com. If you want the financial education you were not taught in school, these 2 books have everything you need from top to bottom, A to Z. All the details are located in the link in the description. If you want the audiobook, that's available at themoneygps.com. Hang on, hold on. If you want to know what's happening, you need to watch this video. Click on it and I will see you there.